Everybody wants freedom until they realize that it requires, sacrificing their current comfort. We say we want location independence, more time, more income, more adventure. But when it comes down to risk taking, most people choose the comfort side of things. So people choose that comfort and they call it being responsible. Scarcity brings you back to that responsible phase where you don't necessarily want to take that leap outside of that comfort zone. So you're scared to fail, you're scared to start. All right, amigos, welcome back to the NextDay Nomad Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Evanishin, and we are bringing you this episode live from Nha Trang, Vietnam. I have now spent just over 2 months here in Nha Trang. We are entering our 6th month here in Vietnam. We only have a short time left before we start making our long journey back to the Western world, where we will be heading through Saigon, where we'll start making that official trek through Phuket, Thailand, all the way to Shanghai for a week. And then we'll do a 12-hour layover in Helsinki, Finland, before I spend about 8 to 9 days in Ireland visiting my wife's family. And then I'll make that long journey back to Toronto. So, and then you obviously end up in Winnipeg for the summer. So thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to come on and talk to you about something that I think that will hit quite deep. And it might little sting for some of you that are stuck in this between wanting freedom and actually living the freedom life. So, here's the truth. Everybody wants freedom until they realize that it requires, sacrificing their current comfort. We say we want location independence, more time, more income, more adventure. But when it comes down to risk taking, most people choose the comfort side of things, because it's kind of how actually my coach talks about this is we're wired for survival. We don't like the unknown. We like knowing what we're going to get every day. So people choose that comfort and they call it being responsible. But let's put it this way. Everybody who has been super successful in life, let's think athletes, musicians, actors, business entrepreneurs, anybody out there who has a bit of maybe some credibility to their name, they didn't act responsible. They were risk takers. They're ones that actually, thought outside of the box. And I know this because I've been there, because when I was going through my journey, I would sit on that couch watching digital nomads on YouTube, dreaming about leaving that 9 to 5. And I was making excuses of why it wasn't the right time. I was waiting, but I was also really scared at the same time. So scarcity brings you back to that responsible phase where you don't necessarily want to take that leap outside of that comfort zone. So you're scared to fail, you're scared to start. So in today's episode, we're going to break down those 5 stages that people go through when chasing freedom. And more importantly, when they usually give up. Because I think that the freedom that you want, it's not found on a beach. It's found in how you handle discomfort. Because one of the things that I learned, even going through my acting career, is let's get comfortable being uncomfortable. So let's dive into this. So stage 1 is the desire for freedom. It always starts with the desire, that itch to live differently amongst the people that you go to work with, the people in your class, maybe some family members. It doesn't matter. It could be even your enemies. You're sitting in traffic, you're scrolling Instagram, and you're always hearing about someone working abroad. It doesn't matter where it is. It could be Thailand, it could be Nepal, it could be Australia, it could be Brazil. It doesn't really matter. But you start thinking, there's got to be more than this. And that this is sitting in traffic or on a bus or on a train. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you're thinking, there's got to be a lot more to life than this. And now keep in mind, there's also people that really enjoy that. And that's totally okay. Those people are not usually listening to this podcast. But then you start fantasizing. Beaches, laptops, no boss, no alarm clock. But here's what most people stall. They mistake daydreaming for deciding. Now, procrastination is one of the biggest detriments to succeeding to where you want to be, because what that is that's the fear of failure. Procrastinating is actually fear. So they like the idea of freedom, but they never fully commit to it, because the moment you commit, the clock starts ticking. Now it's on you, and you have to start putting the action in. And that's scary for a lot of people. But until you decide to change things, like actually draw a line in the sand, you'll always be in limbo. The pain of staying the same hasn't yet outweighed the fear of change. That's why people stay stuck for years, because they don't necessarily want, they like that routine, that comfort. They like to know that things are going to be okay. But again, greatness comes from the unknown. Greatness comes from not having a plan B. You look at all the athletes who said, like, my only goal in life, my only plan was to make it to the big leagues. My only plan was to have my startup succeed. I didn't have a plan B. It was either failure or succeed. There was no in between. So you kind of have to have that mindset. And only a certain amount of people actually have that mindset, but you can rewire your brain, because as I mentioned, one of my coaches speaks to me about this and says that when you actually think bigger than what your dream is, the anti-you will take over and start to say, they give you every excuse why you shouldn't succeed, because we are wired from 2,000 years of ancestral, like, warrior mentality, that you have to provide for your family. And that's kind of been wired into us for generations after generations and generations. But now we have the ability to think bigger. And now we have the ability to go out and take what we want and kind of inspire or aspire to be something greater than what we could only imagine. But that imagining now stops here, because you can actually go out and do it. It's never been a better time to go for it. So then we, after that, we would enter into the research phase. You binge watch YouTubers, listen to podcasts, follow travel pages, maybe even buy a course or two or sign up for a free masterclass here and there. And it feels like progress. And to be fair, it's necessary part of the journey. But let me call it what it often is: productive procrastination, like I had mentioned earlier. You're not stuck because you don't know enough. You're stuck because you haven't started. And procrastination is fear. There's no perfect plan that guarantees success. You don't need another podcast. You don't need to make another move. This is where I see people mostly tapping out, is because they consume so much that they get overwhelmed, and then convince themselves that they're not ready. But here's the thing: you won't ever feel ready. Freedom doesn't come with a user manual. It comes with the decision to actually wanting to go for it. So you have to have that decision within you to just say, I'm doing this. There's no other plan. And I can guarantee you it's going to suck at the beginning, but once you get going, you start to learn. Like, I can't speak so much about how much I've learned doing this podcast. I have had zero help from the beginning, other than, the guidance I got at the very beginning. But everything that I've done in my podcast, from editing to the music to putting things together to now being on YouTube to figuring everything out, that has all been done from me. Even the graphics, everything has been done by me. I have learned on the go. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm the best podcaster, I'm going to be in the top 1%. No, but I strive to be there. And that's the difference, is because another friend of mine said this to me, that when you usually give up on your dream, and you're digging and you're digging and you're grinding and you're shoveling to get to that destination that you're looking for, you could be one strike away from gold before you actually quit. Now think about that for a second. We sometimes quit right at the moment that we are on the verge of a massive breakout. I've heard about this from actors in Vancouver, that they gave up, they quit completely just before. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They said to themselves, if this one doesn't work out, I'm done. And it ended up being the one that actually launched their career. The big role, the big move, the big moment. Now, some of you might say to me, well, why did you quit? Well, I've obviously mentioned this a lot, and it's been well documented. that I found a new passion. I wanted to travel, and I felt there was a different why that I wanted in my life, and that was to be location independent, location free. And I didn't feel like acting kind of aligned with that for me anymore. It's not that I quit because I wasn't going to go anywhere I wasn't going to get anywhere with it. It was the fact that I wanted to find it. I found a new passion, and I wanted to travel. I wanted to feel that freedom feeling of just hopping on a plane and not knowing where the next destination was going to take me. I wanted to see cool things, experience experiences that I could only dream of. So it wasn't quitting, it was shifting. But the next thing is you have to take that first step, because this is where shit gets real. You finally do something, you book a one-way ticket, you launch the side hustle, you tell your job you're done, and then the adrenaline hits. It's exciting. But almost immediately, that's where the fear creeps in, because it's the unknown. You don't know what's around the corner anymore. What if I fail? What if people laugh? What if I'm making a mistake? This is called the imposter syndrome stage, and you have to find a way around this. Every single person has been in these situations, and you have to train your brain to think, okay, this is the fight or flight, and I need to fight. I need to fight through this, because your family might think that you've lost it. Your coworkers roll their eyes, or who does this person think they are? You go from feeling super excited to questioning absolutely every decision that you're making. And I remember this very clear when I was leaving acting and starting to travel full time. Nobody really understood. They thought I was, wasting away some potential. And truthfully, I didn't even fully believe in myself yet in a lot of ways, because this is the moment that most people retreat. I moved into like an online working world, doing something completely different than what the film industry is. So a lot of people would think like, well, what if that doesn't work out? Well, I actually really enjoyed what I was doing, and I was helping a lot of people. But this is where people will run back to the familiar. It would have been super easy for me to go running back to serving and bartending, making the, $300 to $600 a night that I was making at the peak of my restaurant career, which is a lot of money. But the thing is, what I didn't want anymore is I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to be on my feet all the time, grinding away at something. And, I wouldn't say it's wasted hours, but I wanted to build something even greater than what I could do while doing serving. So truthfully, I didn't really even think that was a possibility. And so most people would run back to what's familiar. And even if it's soul sucking, because comfort is easier than uncertainty. Again, one thing my coach says is, do you want the familiar hell or the unfamiliar heaven? And most people will take the familiar hell. But listen, this is not a stop sign. It's a sign that you're in it. You're in the battle. You're in the arena, and you're showing up for yourself. No one escapes this stage, but those who move through it, they build the life that others only talk about. And that is traveling. That is being able to go to the car dealership and paying cash for your Porsche or your G-Wagon, whatever it is that you aspire to have. Those people, the really successful people that you look up to, they didn't just have success overnight. We look at like athletes, like 18-year-old to 20-year-old hockey players who sign $1 million contracts, or football players, and they're coming out of school. We just handed them all this money, but they don't see all the work that they've dedicated their whole life from the day that they started playing their sport. They sacrifice their summers. They sacrifice their weekends to get to where they're at. And that's what life is all about. That's what this stage is all about, is sacrificing. That's when we hit that's the discomfort wall. Because here's where the dream starts punching back. It's not sexy anymore. It's super fucking hard. There's going to be times where you're broke, you're tired, you're living in a place where you don't know the language. The online business is not scaling yet, or even like your current business in your, whatever it is that you're building hasn't scaled yet. The clients aren't coming as fast as you thought, or the clients are leaving faster than you thought. You're getting a bunch of success and maybe they're coming not as consistent. This is where reality starts to slap you in the face. And again, this is where people fold. They fold like a cheap tent because they thought freedom meant easy. But let's be real. If it was easy, everybody would do it. This is where it gets challenging. It's supposed to be hard. When it's hard, it's more rewarding. Nobody remembers that feeling of like, oh yeah, like I'm super successful. What they remember is the challenges and the long days, the long hours of getting to that point. My mentor in recruitment works 15 hours a week. I think I would say now maybe 20. But she's put herself in a position of like years and years of grinding and putting herself in a situation where systems run her business. It's amazing. But it didn't just happen overnight. It was trial and error, A and B testing, nonstop, figuring out what works, understanding the business model. Wouldn't say she's ever failed. She's succeeded in every step of the way, but it's because she's been able to A and B test and look at all the challenges, show up for herself, look herself in the mirror, and get to where she needs to be. And I admire her. Because that's what success looks like. It's going through the hard challenges and putting yourself in a situation where you can be rewarded for your success. These people, they thought that if they followed their passion, the universe would hand them the results. But that's just not the case, because freedom doesn't care about your feelings. It demands consistency, sacrifice, and grit. That is the wall. When you get punched in the face, are you willing to get back up and go at it again? Let's use the boxing analogy. I love what Mike Tyson says. It's all fun and games. Everyone's got an ego or whatever it is that he said until you get punched in the face. And then reality sets in. Now you're in the fucking fight. It's the same thing with business or chasing your dreams. Until you get punched in the face, that's when reality sets in. And how you respond will determine your success. And you can get punched in the face moment after moment after moment, but eventually you're going to be the one doing the punching. And that is the exact moment people run back to the matrix. But here's the mind shift that changed everything for me. Because I didn't leave the 9-to-5 to be comfortable. I left so that I could be free. Because I don't like seeing what's happening in my country. I don't want to live in a country that doesn't align with me. I want to be able to be free to go and raise my family where I see fit. And that to me is freedom. And those are not the same thing. That's what we call the breakthrough. Because most people don't make it there. But if you do, if you push past the discomfort, stick to your goals, keep showing up, things will shift. You start building routines that save your energy, your brand, your work, income. It all starts aligning. And you start trusting. You stop outsourcing your life to jobs, governments, your parents, your culture, your country, the economy. This is what I call earned freedom. And it's not making $1 million a year. It's not making, $500,000 a year. It's living within your means that allows you to still do the things that you want. It doesn't have to be all those things. People think that, you have to make $1 million a year to get to where you need to be, but that's not even close to being accurate. I mean, it makes things a lot easier, that's for sure. Because the earned freedom, it's not instant. It's not always glamorous. But guess what? It's your freedom. Because freedom isn't a destination, it's a discipline. And it becomes your default. Because when you can start showing up for yourself and looking yourself in the mirror and getting past that procrastination stage, which is the number one thing that people stop at, is because they don't even actually get started. They run the ideas through their head and it's always fun to dream about it. But when you actually need to start doing it, that's where people fold. So do you want to be part of that? Or would you rather be part of the people that are actually putting their the words to action, their thoughts to action, their dreams to action? So if you're stuck, just know that you're not broken, you're not behind, you're just in one of the stages. But if you stop here, you'll never know what it's like on the other side. Because I actually think that the term, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. They actually haven't been on the other side and seen the grass. They've only watered their own grass. Because another thing, they say that, money doesn't buy you happiness. And I would say that's very true, but it definitely fucking helps when you can eliminate all the other nonsense. Because what it allows you to do is that it does allow you to buy some freedom, buying your time back. When you set up an online business, you can then spend money to hire somebody to do a lot of the grunt work for you when you get your business up and running, which buys your time back. I think everybody should read the 4-Hour Work Week and understand the principles behind it. Because business owners would rather spend the money and have somebody do the work for them, and they can sit back and delegate, and they can have that time back for themselves, whether to travel, to spend time with their kids, raise their kids themselves instead of having a nanny or somebody else doing it. They can actually be a part of their life a lot more. Don't let temporary discomfort rob you of your permanent upgrade. That's why I created the Mindset to Momentum free mini course. This is designed to help you break free from that 9-to-5 grind. It's designed to help you start the process to focus on the mindset shift, because that's where it starts. And it's also designed to audit your skills, your passions, your hobbies, what it is you actually, because if you had an unlimited source of money and money wasn't a problem, ask yourself, what is the thing that you would do for a career? And you can make that a reality by just shifting a couple things, putting your weekend, hobbies to the side for a moment or two and focus on what you can do and build to actually have those weekend hobbies on a day-to-day basis. That course, like I said, is called the Mindset to Momentum. It is a free mini course. You could find the link down in the bio below, and it's free. Take the course, find out what you're passionate about, find out what you're really good at, and then trigger that mindset shift to focus on how you can show up for yourself day in and day out. If this episode resonated with you, I urge you to download that course or send it to somebody that you think is that it could inspire them to make that change. Because the only thing better than breaking free from yourself is helping someone else do it too. That's all I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for listening to the NextDay Nomad Podcast. We are now entering in almost to 1 year of the NextDay Nomad Podcast, and I can't thank you guys all enough for being a part of this journey. I'm excited to see where this goes over the next another year, going into another season of the NextDay Nomad. I appreciate you guys so much. I love you. Be brave, be bold, and we'll see you on the road. Cheers.